Okay, so you're curious about this Gods of the Deep movie everyone's talking about, right? Should you watch it? Should you skip it? Well, you know how we do things here. We did a deep dive into a movie podcast that reviewed it. And yeah, we're ready to share all the juicy bits, give you the lowdown.
Oh, yeah.
Help you decide if this movie's going to float your boat or leave you, well, kind of stranded.
Right. So jump right in.
Right off the bat.
Right.
The big thing we heard, like right away, was how visually stunning this movie's supposed to be. But
it's true.
the storyline. Maybe not so much. So let's unpack that a bit. What did you think when you were listening to the podcast about this whole visual versus story thing?
Well, it seems like the director really swung for the fences visually, like they wanted to make the deep sea environment as immersive and as awe-inspiring as possible.
Right.
And the podcast hosts, they were really impressed. They kept using words like breathtaking and spectacular.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. They said the way they used light and shadow was really effective, too. Like all those scenes in the submersible where the only illumination is coming from the, the sub's little headlights.
Right.
It sounds super claustrophobic.
Oh, yeah, definitely. They said it really amps up the tension because you never know what's lurking just beyond the edge of the light.
Right. And that's where the creatures come in.
Yeah, the creature design, apparently it's incredibly
It's creepy, right?
Really unique and terrifying.
Yeah. So they've definitely nailed the whole visual atmospheric horror vibe for sure.
Absolutely. But then there's the plot, and that's where, things get a little murky.
Yeah. From what I gathered, the story starts out strong. We've got this group of deep-sea explorers who stumble upon an ancient underwater city.
The classic lost civilization trope, always a good hook.
Yeah.
But then they accidentally awaken something evil. And that's when the movie kind of falls into familiar territory.
Right, like every horror movie cliche in the book.
Exactly. The group gets picked off one by one. There are predictable jump scares. And the ending, well, let's just say it wasn't exactly a surprise.
Yeah. So maybe not a movie for hardcore horror fans who are looking for something really original and unpredictable.
Right. And speaking of things that didn't quite hit the mark, the podcast also mentioned the acting.
Oh, yeah, the acting. What was the deal with that?
Well, they said the lead actor, he was great, really conveyed the sense of wonder and then the terror that comes with encountering this, ancient, powerful entity. But the supporting cast, not so much.
A little wooden, maybe?
Yeah, kind of. Like they weren't fully invested in their role, so it was hard for the audience to really care about what happened to them.
Yeah, I can see how that would take you out of the movie.
Definitely. If you're not emotionally connected to the characters, those jump scares and those big action sequences, they lose their impact.
Totally. So it's sounding like Gods of the Deep is more of a feast for the eyes than a deeply moving cinematic experience.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment.
But there was one element that really intrigued me, and that was the whole mythology angle. Like ancient gods living in the deep sea. That's such a cool concept.
Right. And they didn't go with the obvious choices, like Poseidon or Cthulhu.
What do they use?
They delved into Polynesian mythology.
Really?
Yeah, there's this whole pantheon of sea deities in Polynesian culture, and the movie draws inspiration from those.
That's awesome. And I bet it adds a really unique flavor to the movie, like something you haven't seen a million times before.
Exactly. It plays into that primal fear of the unknown, right? Like, there are still things down there in the deep sea that we haven't discovered, and maybe some of them are best left undisturbed.
So it sounds like if you're a fan of incredible visuals, like big budget special effects, and if you're into mythology and monsters, this movie might be worth checking out.
Right.
But if you're looking for like an Oscar-worthy screenplay with nuanced characters and a mind-blowing plot, maybe set your expectations accordingly. Gods of the Deep might be a little more style over substance.
Yeah.
But hey, sometimes that's all you need for a fun movie night, right?
Absolutely.
One thing this whole discussion has me thinking about is why the deep sea is such a fertile ground for horror stories. Why are we so fascinated and terrified by what lies beneath the surface?
Right.
I mean, is it the darkness? The sheer vastness? Or is it the idea that there are creatures down there, things we haven't even discovered yet, that are completely alien to us?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Something to ponder, right?
Definitely.
Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive. But hey, keep those questions in mind when you watch Gods of the Deep. Maybe you'll come up with some answers of your own. See you next time.
See ya.